time I really wanted to... Remember that wall banner you gave me that had the giant pentagram?
Oh, yeah.
So for a long time, I really wanted to hang that on like just an inch or two away from the wall, just cover the wall. But right behind it, I just wanted to cover it in kink gear.
Do it.
Like, crops and flogs and ropes and all that jazz. I just thought it'd be really funny to be like, you want to see what's behind that?
Exactly what you expected.
Exactly, yeah. It's surprising because you expected it.
You're just like, surely he's not going to have bondage gear. Oh, yep, he did.
He
cool.
sure did.
Cool, I'm in the start of a Giallo film. I love this for me. Is Johnny's stab hands going to break out of knife prison?
Well, let me get my leather driving gloves.
Yeah, right?
Honestly, though, you're one of the few people I know that can, like, pull off leather driving gloves and it's not, like, a concern. Yeah. You're just like, that's just his vibes, and it's okay.
The thing is, they're a statement piece. And a lot of people don't understand the statement being made. Like, you can't just wear those with any vibe. That's when it gets weird. You have to look very classy, or you have to look...
hard as fuck.
Yeah, you have to look like you're ready to drive a Ferrari or murder a prostitute. Those are your two options.
Those are your two energies.
With the leather driving gloves. And I feel like I can slot into either depending on my mood.
Yeah. And the use of a sports jacket or not.
Right.
Because I think out of our scumfuck friends, like, you're one of the few that can actually pull off, like, dressing classier and it not just look like you're putting on your dad's suit.
I don't own a suit.
I own many, and I never have worn them. They're all inheritance suits.
Well, that's not true. I've worn suits since then. One of the first suits that I actually enjoyed wearing was a suit of one of my friends at the time's dead grandpa.
Nice.
Yeah, his grandpa died, and then, like, 2 days later, he came over to hang out with all of us, and he brought over these, like, duffel bags of clothes, and he's like, check this out, guys. And it was all old, like, 60s and 70s stuff.
Hell yeah.
And all of us just took stuff, and then I took this suit, I put it on, I wore it to school the next day. All of us in the friend group were wearing a dead man's clothes to school the next day. And someone was like, you don't usually wear brown and tan and suits. What's up with that? And I was like, oh, it's a dead guy's. And they were like, what? And I was like, yeah.
That's generally how vintage works.
Right.
Yeah.
But, like, we knew that dead guy, which was a little bit different, I guess. But they were like, that's weird, man. I'm like, is it? I think it's kind of cool. Dead guy wore these. I'm wearing dead guy's clothes.
Real Hikata energy.
I wear the fetters I create, or I carry.
Oh, no. That could be good or a problem.
Yeah.
Speaking of a problem, hi and welcome to Blank Bodies, a Vampire the Masquerade V5 tabletop and horror podcast. I'm your host Hunter, and as always, I'm joined by
John
and
Sarah.
yeah. So we got a episode that kind of spiraled today, but that's fun. We are talking about the Hunter V5 bonus content pack they put out. We're talking about the World of Darkness Expanded Mechanics PDF they put out, and Sarah made a very interesting discovery about that.
I've made some discoveries about both these things in ways that I'm like, yes, good. So V5 we all are enjoying. H5 I am enjoying. I understand some other people aren't, but you know what? That's okay.
I don't dislike it, but I feel like it just needs a little bit more. It's
been getting a little undersold, and we found some goodies that hopefully we can present and be like, yes, nice. W5 is on the works, and then I found a note, but we'll get into it.
Yeah. I will note that everything we're talking about today is free, and not only it's free, but it's something I haven't seen a lot of people talk about. These are definitely some core things to throw into your toolkit, if you're a player or a storyteller, I think.
Especially if you're a storyteller, there's some really handy-dandy notes and things that should make running the game easier. I added in sections that I was just like, things that I, as a storyteller or a player, have run into. If not every session, at least every fucking game I've been in, these things have come up, and we were all just like, I don't know. So now we have some guidelines. So, hooray, thank you. We have them now.
Yay.
Hurrah! So, just general World of Darkness shenanigans and chicanery. And yeah, so hopefully these are helpful things for everybody. So I'm going to start off with the World of Darkness Expanded Storyteller Mechanics PDF. It is free. You can just download it from the World of Darkness site directly. It was part of the World of Darkness October month of giveaways in 2022. This contains expanded mechanics for all current and future World of Darkness 5 5th ed game lines. Big note on that. This is stuff that will help all of the systems. So even if you're like, I don't want to run vampire, I'm going to be running werewolf, you can just download this and just have it in your pocket for use. Including a note that I love, which is from the artistic creation sections on page 2 of the PDF, which is a mage might compose vast murals of occult graffiti. So Mage 5 is potentially on the table, I'm hoping. Maybe.
Oh my god, I'd fucking love it if a mage used, like, city-sanctioned graffiti walls as their, like, library. That'd be fucking rad.
That'd be rad as fuck.
That'd be super neat.
Yeah.
Go to St. Louis, they have, like, this 2-mile-long wall that they're like, here you go, guys. Don't do it on the city. Instead, please do it on this wall. And they have, like, people from all over the planet come who are, like, renowned graffiti artists that will do these works. It's cool stuff. Yeah, I walked past one that was, like, 30 feet long, and it was just this giant-ass fucking mural that, like, started as one style and then dipped into a different and then into a different because there was a whole crew that came in.
Oh,
it was really neat.
That's dope
anyway,
as fuck.
It'd be cool to have a mage that uses that for magic.
It would be cool to have a mage as a player character in this game system, and it maybe be balanced slightly.
Yeah, balanced is the thing. I'll play mage. I'll play mage 5 if it's balanced.
I'm curious if they're starting to put feelers out. If werewolf comes out, Gen Con big announcement. Yeah, mage is in the works.
That'd be cool. That would be sick. Considering how more free the game system is in Vampire. I've not really fucked with Hunter so much in 5th ed, but with how able you are to calibrate dice pools in Vampire, I feel like the Hunger dice system should transfer over into like a Paradox dice system, I feel like pretty intuitively. So I'm like, fingers crossed, please, 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 please. It would be dope. I would like all my supernatural homies to hang out in the same room and yell at each other and do friend flirting and whatever the fuck you're going to do for your game. There are some notes I wanted to give from the core book, which Advanced Conflict, page 295, has rules for variant dice mechanics and suggested dice pools for various actions. I found a lot of those are helpful for Mortal and Ghoul games that I have run. I would assume they'd also work for Hunter. And we covered these details on episode 10, Combat and Social and Physical, and episode 14, Skills, Specialty Craft Macaroni and Cheese on this podcast. So, if you're running games,
go back there and look at that.
Yeah, if you're running games and you want more help outside of what we're talking about right now, the book has some shit in the core book, and then we have also covered stuff in previous episodes. So hooray. Basics of this, there's a bunch of rules, things that will help. There's charts. There's actually charts for things. It's nice. I'm not going to go into all of them.
Charts?
Yes.
Charts, you say?
There are charts.
God damn.
The thing I keep asking for, where I'm like, I just want some guidelines. Just some standards, like references that all of us can agree on and go like, okay, here's the base, so we all understand where we are, and if you need to change things up for the rule of cool, go for it. Fuck it.
Rule of cool is very important.
Yeah, so those exist now. It's great, but I'm just going to highlight some shit that has literally come up in either every fucking game session I have ever played in or run, or at some point comes up in a Chronicle and we're all just kind of staring at each other going, oh, fuck, what is the rule for that? So, proceeding on, the guide is broken down into mental test, physical test, social test, and then some combat and maneuvering rules. So we're going to follow that format. So in the mental test, computer use. Computers are as essential to modern chronicles as they are dangerous, and clever characters can use them for everything from finding information to sabotaging security systems to sharing damning photos of their rivals across social media. Computers exist. Use them in your games. They're great. Basically, they did make a note of most basic skills require or assume some computer or internet use. Like if you're like, I need to find a restaurant. You're probably going to go on to Google Maps or whatever the fuck, Apple Safari, whatever the fuck they use. I don't know.
That's the web browser.
Apple Maps.
Apple Maps. I don't know.
I think it's just called Maps.
Is it just Maps? I don't fucking use
I think.
Yeah.
Apple. They did have notes for if you're going to be doing any computer hacking via using coded script. The recommended dice pool is intelligence and tech versus the difficulty of the system. So like an average corporate security would be like difficulty 4. A more secure database would be a 6. Hacking the NSA would be 8+. So, have fun with that if you want to do hackers. Go for it. There's also a note about hacking versus via social engineering. So, like phishing scams, Nigerian chainmails, that kind of shit. They recommend manipulate plus subterfuge or intelligence plus streetwise. So there's multiple ways to get people's passwords. You can do that and not have to be a hacker man with like 5 dots in tech.
Yay!
Woo!
That's funny. I've been working on my own game system, and I've been working with a friend of mine. And one of the suggestions he made was similar along the lines. He's like, what if we make all hacking just like essentially a charisma pool roll? Because that's what 90% of hacking these days is. I mean, we had to go through like a small like training at work because like the biggest way people get hacked right now is you get an email that's like from someone way higher up than you in your company, and they're like, hey, we're doing an employee appreciation thing. I need you to go buy a bunch of gift cards and give me the codes so that we can hand them out to people.
Yeah.
Oh, that's tricky.
What they do, well, one of the ones that they used for my company that they used as an excuse was, it's again from somebody high up in the company or just somebody else in the company, and they'll be like, the email address will be slightly different. Like there might be a period in the middle of a word, or one letter's capitalized where it shouldn't be, or something like that. But it'll be like, hey, we're having a billing issue with this customer. Will you go ahead and send us their billing information so we can, work that out with them? And then if you do it, you just gave a
sensitive information,
to big corporations sometimes,
So, yeah, have fun with that, guys, as players and storytellers.
Wild stuff.
Fucking, yeah.
Don't do that out there, guys.
God.
It hurts the people that accidentally click on it.
Yeah.
It also hurts the corporation, which is always nice. But, yeah.
So another thing that comes up all the time and people are just like, I don't know what to do, is perception checks.
Well, that's in real life, by the way. Hack the corporations in your game all you want.
Hack the planet. Yeah. But yeah, perception checks. This seems to come up as people are like, I don't know what to do with this in World of Darkness because I'm used to just perception just being a D20 roll. Not anymore. So most perception pools are going to be some attribute with the awareness skill. And it gives some recommendations on different ways to pair these things. So wits is kind of more recommended for noticing something in the moment. The examples given are like hearing something shuffle or feeling like a puff of air revealing a hidden door. Just kind of one of those moments. Intelligence would be recommended for recognizing something. So whether this is like hearing a guard on rotation or spotting someone wearing camouflage like out in the woods. And you're like, that's a ghillie suit. That's not a bush. I know what those look like. So there's that.
Would that also count for like... You've seen that weird symbol painted on that wall.
Yeah.
It was in a book that you read 6 years ago.
I would say, if you're wanting to do an intelligence and awareness check and, you're just like, oh, yeah, no, you're at this club. And then you realize, you recognize that symbol as belonging to this occult group or this gang, or you're just,
This is this vampire claiming his territory over this club.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, or like, oh, that's the business logo for this company, which is a shell company owned by the fucking prince. I don't know.
Right.
Various options for that. And then resolve is given as finding details while distracted. So being able to hear someone whilst a bunch of fire alarms are going off, or you happen to find a detail during a long study session, or you're like going through files and the fucking newsreels, and then suddenly you're like, oh, wait, I found a thing. Ugh.
You notice the Nosferatu slip his hand into his breast pocket while his Brujah buddy's yelling at you.
Yeah, you're getting chewed out by somebody, and then you just happen to look over them, and you're just like, I see what you're doing there.
Yeah, somebody else is reaching into their pocket here. What's going on?
Yeah, or there's just something going on at Elysium, and then during the chaos, you're able to kind of pinpoint, oh, somebody's sneaking out the back door. Gonna put that in my brain pan for later.
See, I think this is really interesting because normally when I run as ST, I must always just use wits and awareness. It is nice to have a couple different options.
Yeah, because it also allows different player characters to highlight different skills. Because I generally use wits and awareness as kind of my standard baseline, and then if you as a player want to go, actually push his glasses up bridge of nose. May I roll this dice pool instead because this is kind of how I'm handling the situation? And storytelling be like, yeah, go for it. The book gave the note that I liked was storytellers should be asking how much the action depends on instinct or sensory acuity versus memory recognition or pure mental focus. So it's kind of a good way to get people more into character and invested into things, to be like, okay, yeah, I get that you're investigating the room, but like, how are you going about it? Like, are you going through it very Sherlock Holmes? Are you going through it and actually like with a fine-tooth comb collecting details? Are you just like ripping drawers open and just kind of hoping you find some shit?
Yeah.
So yeah, a couple of different ways you can handle that. It's fun. The last one we're going to cover from the mental test section is preparedness, which is something that has fucking been a kick in the ass so many times. The quote I'm borrowing from this section is, nothing slows a story down more than a lengthy inventory scene in which players list every conceivable item or object they may need for tonight's activities. The preparedness test avoids this scenario by allowing players to test during the session to see if they remembered to bring something along or to pick it up earlier. Some people like doing the checklist scenes where they're going over their gear, and I'm not going to take that away from you if that's something y'all enjoy, but there's times where you're like in the moment and then you're just like, fuck, do I actually have this? You can just roll this test and be like, well, let's see if you remembered.
Yeah,
I like the idea of like a coterie or group like having the gear up scene where you're actually taking the time to like, okay, we're bringing our, our knife and our rope and our so-and-so is making sure to grab his gun and I got my car keys and like you're actually having, like in the like in Aliens 2?
Oh yeah, where they're having the gearing up scene.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Every gear up scene. Those are kind of fun to have in a role-playing game sometimes. But yeah, I totally agree that it's like, did I remember to bring a lighter? Who fucking cares? Like, just, let's find out.
I tend to have a rule of, if it's something that I or someone I know would just have in their pocket anyway, I tend to always say yes. It's like, oh, lighter. Oh, you need a pocket knife. Like, little things like that. Is it really going to make a big impact on the story by using ST being like, nope, you forgot your lighter, or is it just going to deflate the scene and that sort of thing? I think that's good to keep in mind too. Also, we've been running Shadowrun, and like our last session was literally just everyone sitting down like bullshitting and buying stuff for a heist coming up and making plans and stuff. Like, that is a whole type of gameplay that's like not inherent to Vampire, but I think can easily be used in any type of role-playing game. Like, if your players are gearing up for something big and you want to take the time to have those scenes, like, then I think you should be a little more strict. It's like, we spent 3 hours prepping what you guys thought you're going to need with this. No one once said, we might need some extra climbing rope or something, so you don't have it. Yeah. Whereas if you're more, we're doing the story and we're banging through it, I think this is a great rule. If you don't want to do that, like, all right, everyone make, like, plan together kind of thing, this smooths that out a lot. Yeah.
And I think that Vampire is more of a game that, I think it's better for Vampire to smooth through that most of the time. The Shadowrun, I think, is definitely, like, you're supposed to plan the heist and, like, get into the nitty-gritty of how you're going to go about doing stuff, because then it's more exciting when you're like, all right, we're going to break open the vault door, and you break open the vault door, and that's when the Lone Star in full, like, combat armor is standing there with his machine gun. Uh-oh. you know?
Basically, the guide basically agrees with what you guys said. The guide recommends player characters do not need to roll for signature or ordinary items. And I kind of made the note of, like, making the sheriff roll to have their crossbow, or a hunter by night but EMT during the day to have fucking bandages on them is fucking weird.
Yeah.
Like, if it's stuff that would make sense for you to just kind of have on your person, just hand wave it. It's not that deep. The guide recommends that this test should be intelligence and the related skill for the item. So, like, if you're somebody who's into the occult, int plus occult to remember it if you brought, like, your tarot cards or, chalk for writing sigils, that kind of shit.
Int versus firearms to see if you remembered to bring, like, an extra magazine or extra bullets.
Right. That kind of shit. A storyteller should ask for the role if failure would be interesting, or setting the DC based on the availability of the item. So it would make more sense for the biker to have access to cocaine than the clean cut, like, suburbanite, was kind of my thought on that.
Right.
So,
yeah. It's like, okay, well, one of you is definitely going to have a Zippo. One of you might very well have, like, a Palm tablet to do research on the fly. Like, and having it character-based, I think, not just stat-based, makes a lot of sense, too.
Yeah, and sometimes kind of having these preparedness sequences and stories can lead to some character building, because, like, I tend to like playing jackknife characters, so I tend to have characters that just have a bag just full of just fucking nonsense. That everyone's like, why? Why would you have these things? And I like trying to break stories with just mundane items. It's
Right.
like, if I can get through the plot with a bolt cutter, I'm doing great. But, other people don't want to play games like that, or, you're doing kind of games that have more like gangster or mafia themes. So, like, having that guy having a bag in his car with like a change of clothes makes sense. No. Other characters might not have that because they're like, oh, fuck, well, you left your gym bag at home, so, like, what you got's what you got. Oops.
Right.
That, and I would say, too, I know with Vampire, you're saying it's a little bit more of a just kind of go for it, and having those roles is nice. I also think from the vibe that they were trying to put through with Hunter, I think the whole point is them collecting information and essentially planning a heist, or planning, like...
You're planning ops.
You gotta get this, you gotta go, you gotta view your target, get the information, and then having like a time where you all sit down and actually make a plan, like set up a strike, how are you going to do this, what are you going to need, I think makes more sense in the vibe that they wanted Hunter to have. And so less just rolling for it and more being like, okay, we're going to plan this out, unless your characters aren't going to plan it out, which is a whole different can of worms than just saying...
Right.
Yeah, I guess in preparing for the coming werewolf apocalypse, having werewolf characters that, you're going to be probably at some point running some sort of collective action against Pentax and the Worm and all that kind of stuff. So it's like, yeah, I as a storyteller would like you guys to have some fucking organization planning meeting, but am I going to make the former Boy Scout roll to make sure that he has a fucking knife on him? No, that's fucking silly. I'm like, yeah, of course you have your fucking pocket knife on you.
Yeah.
But, and like if there's a werewolf character who is like a fashion person, and I'm like, yeah, if you want to make a fucking flamethrower out of hairspray and a lighter, I'm not going to stop you. It would make sense that you have that. But like the social outcast nerd guy, I'm not expecting to have a can of hairspray on him, so I might make you roll to be like, yeah, sure, let's see if you have it.
He might have a can of Axe, though.
Yeah, I was thinking of that same thing.
Yeah. But you kind of see where I'm going from, where it's like, okay, yeah, it's like certain items that make sense for people to just have on them because you're just going to have shit.
Yeah.
But if it would be a kind of a fun, turns out you don't have your utility screwdriver, so how are you going to break through this door or open the panel? Now you got to figure shit out.
You can make it fun. I think that's the real answer here, is you have to make it interesting if you're going to tell a player no. Or if you're going to make them roll it to find out. If they're rolling, you better have an interesting response to either end of that dice roll. And even if the interesting thing is, okay, you do it, you have the thing, you're good to go. Do it the way you expect.
Yeah.
That's fine. But like if you're going to say no and then just stone the wall them, like, sorry, I guess you can't walk into the adventure we planned. Yeah. Don't do that.
Yeah, using this to build tension, I think, is good. Or using it as a moment where, this particular PC doesn't have the thing, but somebody else in the group can be like, oh, yeah, I can lend you, like, my fucking knife. And then you guys are, like, building a friendship of trust and da-da-da-da-da.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. You can use that as character building moments. Hooray.
Huzzah.
Moving on. Physical test. There's a section on driving. They do make a note that Hunter drive and driving the skill are not the same fucking thing.
Yes.
All right.
Moving on. Quote unquote, nobody needs the driving skill to operate a vehicle normally.
Fucking good.
Yes.
Thank God. Now, if you as a player want to be like, I have no points in driving, I can't drive, that's a flaw I have, fucking great. That's amazing.
Like Wyatt.
Yeah. That's amazing. I love that shit. Or if you want a house rule, like, if you have no dots in drive, you can operate a car normally, but you might need a dot to, like, have a motorcycle because you have to get a special license for that. I'm like, okay, fine, whatever.
Yeah, or drive a semi. I would almost, from what I know about that would almost make that 2 dots. But that's up to you as the ST. Having, like, something that specialized commercial for driving.
Yeah, but, like, forcing players to spend XP or creation dots to just be able to operate a fucking sedan. Don't worry about it.
Yeah,
it's fine.
the way I've always ran it is even with no dots, you can have a car and get to work your daily routine normally, even on the highway. Like, if your mom or your dad or yourself can do it without any specialized training, it's assumed you can do that with a car. Maybe your character has trouble parallel parking. But, like...
Well, I was just going to say, come on, man. You already know that, like, driving a semi is like a 0 to 1 dot thing. You deal with semi drivers.
They have very specialized skills.
You have to get a special license to operate that kind of a vehicle. Now, the guide has some interesting notes for driving pools that I liked. If you're doing complex maneuvers, that might be a dex and driving check. You're good. If you're doing, if you're driving and there's bad road conditions, whether it is weather or obstacles or, traffic zones or whatever, that might turn into a wits and driving because you're having to go, oh fuck, and handle things on the fly. The difficulty on these will depend on the conditions. Standard driving difficulty for a light, regular-ass vehicle is 3. If you're driving a heavy or unwieldy vehicle, that might bump it to a 4. So I would say probably driving a semi would be a 4. Or like a Ford F-150, or like you have a trailer on the back of the car, or a mattress tied to the top of the car. I don't know.
It's interesting they used these for the driving, because I was doing some reading. I can't remember if this was in a book or if it was just research I found online. Maybe it was a homebrew thing. But they also had resolve and drive as a possible option if it's like a you're in a rush hour traffic or a stressful situation while you're driving. Resolve and drive to keep cool and still
I think that would be good for like a prolonged, like you're dealing with prolonged traffic.
Yeah.
Like a 5 o'clock rush hour, or if you're doing hey, you're going to be driving for like a few hours for a road trip, do a resolve and drive just to give me an overall, like, how does the trip go? How do you feel at the end? Did you have any complications?
Right.
See, I was almost going to suggest, I don't know, back in my band days, I've definitely been there, but just like long overnight drives where it's like 4 a.m. and you're the only one awake, like stamina and drive you could almost do just to be like, all right, you're exhausted, you've been up for 16 hours straight now, you're the only one awake and you got to get out of the state before the werewolves get you or whatever. Like,
how many poppers are you going to slam for this?
Well, especially because the one I was talking about was my ghoul.
Oh, yeah.
So, like, for sure, homeboy was drinking a lot of coffee.
Hell yeah. But yeah, for each possible complication, you can add a +1 to the difficulty. If it's an extreme condition, add a +2.
So if you are driving your semi-truck through a snowstorm and a werewolf decides to attack your semi-truck, you're getting a total, your DC is like 6?
Potentially.
Or more?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's pretty brutal.
Yeah, it can get really brutal. Failing the roll could slow down or stop the driver. Complete failure might mean a spin out or a crash.
Yeah. I would also give bonus dots to certain characters. Like your situation with the werewolf chasing the semi driver. Like, that's terrifying. And in the middle of winter. But, like, what if he's a nice road trucker that's just normal driving for him? You might bump that down a little bit, too, even if that's the standard. This guy's not a standard driver. So.
Yeah, so at that point, it might be, like, for him, driving on the ice is not an extreme condition, so that would be a +1. But the werewolf is a +2.
Right.
Yeah. So, like, oopsie poodle. So, calibrate as you need, but these are some guidelines to keep in mind that are, I think, good rules of thumb as an ST to be like, oh, yeah, blah. The next one, intrusion. Intrusion covers breaking and entering, physically evading security devices, picking locks, cracking safes, and preventing others from doing the same. This happens all the fucking time in every fucking World of Darkness game. I don't give a fuck what system you're playing and how you're mixing your modules. This comes up all the time. So, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, it's okay. In one of my games, I currently have a character that is, like, pretty much solely based on the word intrusion.
Perfect. Yeah, so intrusion pools are usually some sort of attribute plus larceny. The guide gives a bunch of examples. Like dexterity and larceny would be for like lockpicking or dodging, like physically dodging security systems. Intelligence and larceny could be used for safe cracking, bypassing alarms, and setting up security systems. Wits and larceny could be used for like noticing hidden cameras. Just kind of like situational awareness involving these kinds of things.
Well, that's just like pattern recognition. It's like it's like an awareness check, but pattern recognition because you know what to look for that specifically.
Oh yeah, and you might even have specialties involved in like being able to be like, yes, I am aware that this security company does their checks at this time of day, so I'm aware to be on the lookout for XYZ. And strength and larceny can be involved in like breaking a lock cleanly. Dear God, the amount of things I've found on TikTok that have made me go, oh yeah, padlocks are bullshit.
Yes.
Padlocks are bullshit.
An aluminum can get around a padlock.
Oh yeah, it's great. And the DC of the check will depend on the situation, obviously. So DC 1, many stored bot locks.
Yeah.
Yeah, just literally, I'm mostly just testing this just to make sure you don't fail.
Yeah.
You're going to get it, but like, does the guard notice that you did this?
Yeah, that's, I mean, most locks, when you lock your front door or something, it's not that, oh, people can't get in. It's, oh, I put a barrier that most people are going to be too lazy to deal with.
Yeah, it's mostly impediments.
Yeah.
But yeah, so DC 4 or 5 for most commercial/public buildings for their security ratings. A DC 6 or 7 for like bank vault secured areas. 8+ for hazardous material storage.
That makes sense.
Yeah, so it's like, if you're getting into places where like, you know, the spicy substances are, it's probably going to be real hard to get in there.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
also at the same time, you'd be surprised.
Right. It's upsetting.
It's kind of terrifying how easy it is to get into places sometimes.
I know. That's why I was like,
you just walk in.
yeah,
sometimes.
4 or 5 for most commercial and public buildings, I feel like is a fair DC of like, okay, yeah, and just like, you know, as long as you're not stupid, and also if you prepare,
right,
you should be good. The guide does. Go ahead.
A DC 8+ that would make sense for hazardous materials if the hazardous material storage was like a Raytheon facility.
Oh yeah,
you know, but if it was like, I don't know, your local blood bank, those have hazardous materials in them.
Mm-hmm.
I would say that's not as difficult to get in.
I think it depends on the hazardous material. Like bloods or like a sharps container is not going to be hard to get into. But like, I like the idea of like a group of hunters. We need to get into this like lab's clean room to get this specific chemical because we know it'll help us against this werewolf or whatever. Like, I think that's I think that's like, you could have a whole heist game where it's like, all right, we got to break in and get these specific things so we can kill the ghost with this specific chemical or whatever. I like that.
That could be fun. The guide does recommend that these kinds of tests must succeed on the first attempt or an alert will happen.
I dig that.
So, you know, it's very, you know, Solid Snake, like, brrp. Yeah. So, and you can kind of gauge like how intense the failure correlates to how much of the alert happens and use that to guide attention for your chronicle.
Yeah.
Like
if you're just trying to get into like a high school locker like padlock and you fail, it's like someone might just be like, do you hear something?
Or worse, the lock gets jammed, so now you have to like shake it a bunch and cause a bunch of loud noise.
Yeah.
Oh my god, a hunter campaign with a bunch of high schoolers. God. Fucking morons. Just a bunch of
You gotta
teenagers.
get into so-and-so's locker. Well, I had this locker 3 years ago, and I know that if you kick it in this one spot while pulling up on the top of the thing, it just unlocks itself.
But it'll make a noise, and that might alert somebody.
Exactly.
So, you know.
There's a Chronicles book I think we've mentioned before that we should do an episode on. I believe it's called The Innocents.
Yeah, we've talked about that.
It's just all a guide on running like children up through like high schoolers and maybe even like some college age people.
Weird.
Coterie. I think that would be cool. I think it
I feel like part of me feels like playing that age group could be really interesting and a lot of fun, but it is so easy to get real squicky.
Because World of Darkness.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, we can do a whole episode about it. I think it would equally tie into consent and like subsettings and an easy introduction before we start doing like Dark Ages or something. But
for sure.
I do like that idea because like it is very like Fright Night. Like, what do you do if you're a bunch of fucking high schoolers and you find out the neighbor's probably a vampire?
And you gotta like break into the shed.
Yeah, like that lower bar, but I feel like it increases the tension and it'd be fun.
Oh, hell yeah. The guide also, getting back into intrusions, items and situations can affect the DC or the intrusion pool. So margins of success when setting up a security system should be added to the base DC of a system. So if you have a player character that is like, hey, I'm spending time and money and resources to secure my haven or base of operations. If they want to go through that project and they want to roll for that, and they roll whatever the margin is, go ahead and just add that. They're like, hey, I'm bumping up security because I pissed off somebody. I'm worried they're going to fuck with my shit. And it's like, okay, cool. Your base rating will now be this because you spent the time and effort to do the roll as opposed to what your base rating is. And then you guys can kind of articulate amongst each other how long that bonus rating is going to be. Because it might be like, yeah, you can keep paying for your boosted security, but like, you know, your resources is only this many dots. So you can only do it for X amount of time before you start taking hits on your resources.
Right.
Yeah, that kind of thing. So it's like, keep that in mind. Lacking proper tools adds difficulty. So if you're having to improvise lock picking, So if you're using DIY tools instead of specially made things, that might subtract 1 from your pool.
Yeah, you got a hairpin and not a proper scrape.
If you're using a hairpin, which are bad improvised tools, that might be a -2. So you're just like, you're completely just like, fuck, I got mugged, so my lockpicks are fucked, or I was in a chase and it fell out of my pocket.
Right.
I don't have anything, but I can jimmy this door open with like a credit card. That might take away from your dice pool.
Right.
Just because you're like, fuck, I wasn't actually ready for this.
Man, I love these things. My brain immediately just goes to the weirdest situations, though, all the time. And I'm like, well, what about if you had an aluminum can, like I said earlier, and you wanted to make a shim out of it to just shim open the padlock?
That would be a craft roll.
I might have you
could do it quickly.
Yeah, I might have you do a craft roll, and then if you fail that, that's going to just up the difficulty because there might be a time-dependent...
Right. Or
somebody
you just
might
made
see
a
you.
shitty shim.
Yeah, and then it's like, well, that would have only taken away 1, but you did bad, so it's -2 now. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Or you're fucking around with a Coke can and you made a lot of noise because it's aluminum. Or you're cutting up sharp aluminum and you fuck your finger up a little bit.
Fair.
And now you've left burrs on the ground and you've left evidence now.
Which is why, everyone, if you're going to have aluminum shims, just make a couple before you leave home.
Yeah, this is just life advice. Speaking of life advice, you are allowed to use intelligence and tech to crack a purely electronic security system at a +1 difficulty.
Nice. That's kind of cool.
So that's a good little like, hey, if you're having a bad time, but somebody else in your party's like, just fucking get out of the way and just like boop boop boop. Mm-hmm. They might be able to take a whack at it. Intelligence and tech may be required to gain control of certain security systems. So you might need a guy on your team.
Makes sense.
Yeah. More reasons to have character connections.
Yay.
Hell yeah. Shadowing and pursuit. These are 2 different sections, but they kind of bleed into each other, so I just made it one. Shadowing is when one character shadows another by keeping them in sight, ideally without them being noticed. That's what that is. The shadower, when they're not spotted, should be rolling wits and awareness versus the shadowees, resolve and streetwise. Because they don't know they're being followed. They're just kind of going about their day, minding their business. If the shadower is spotted, but is not aware of this fact, they will continue to roll wits and awareness, and the person who's being pursued can roll wits and stealth, wits and streetwise, or wits and awareness to avoid being followed and or giving away the fact that they're aware of what's going on. So you can have a whole cat versus mouse sequence with, like, the shadower running through the city and they're just rolling the same pool and having no idea they've been fucked.
Yeah.
And you as a storyteller can just, like, DM the other character and just be like, hey, by the way, start rolling this other dice pool instead. We're not telling him.
Nice. Nice.
So that's fun. The situation can't affect these pools. Generally, this award is given to the party who is aware of the situation. So if you are the shadower and the other person doesn't know they're being pursued, you will usually get these bonuses. But if the other person is aware, they'll start getting these bonuses. So hooray.
And then if you're both aware, they just cancel each other out.
That changes what this is.
Oh, okay.
So you get a +1 die if the area is busy. You get a +2 to the pool if it's crowded or you're in a place where there's a lot of blind slots, like a market or a parking garage or, a hospital. Lots of options. Have fun with this.
Yeah.
If both sides are aware of the shadowing, it becomes a pursuit.
Pursuit!
This just becomes a chase now. So the race between roughly equal parties will result in a basic contest. This could be vehicles, which will be wits and driving because you're trying to keep your eyes on the target. If you're on foot, this will be some sort of attribute plus athletics. And the book recommends if this is like a marathon of a chase, stamina and athletics. If it's a sprint, it might be strength and athletics. If you're doing hardcore parkour, that will be dex and athletics.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so both sides of the party can decide like how you're running. Races with help can use teamwork to help aid each other in the pools.
Like someone's throwing shit at a dude who's chasing you.
Possibly. That is actually race with combatants.
Oh.
That's when conflict rules get
God damn it, I
instead.
keep jumping just like
It's
half
okay.
a step forward.
It's okay. So races with help might be like if you're shadowing and you have like multiple people keeping eye on the one target.
Like sheepdogging someone?
Yeah, you're trying to sheepdog somebody, and then you can use like teamwork tactics. This might be something more involved in like hunter, really, than vampire, but vampires can use basically the same shit too.
I was gonna say, or like in the movies where like the cops or some other group is like staking someone out, and they're like, there's like someone like in plain clothes in the cafe at the mall being like, all right, the target is walking through the mezzanine, and then you have another character like up on a balcony being like, he has entered this hallway, and they're like messaging each other. And
oh yeah, that kind of shit. Or you have Hacker Man that's like breaking through all these like the security cameras in the area, or using. It's very, oh god, what's that video game where they're hacking phones to track people? Fuck. Like that, where they're just like bouncing through people's digital devices to like keep track, or somebody's got a GPS thing. There's a lot of options. But yes, you can also have a race with conflict, which will evolve with conflict rules. Parties can inflict damage on each other as part of the pursuit, using their pursuit pools. So, hooray. That'll be fun. You can use hazards in the environment as weapon damage.
Nice.
So if you just want to go full Roadrunner, Looney Tunes, bullshit, action, I don't know. Fucking go for it. Do it. Do the things.
That's literally like someone's chasing you, you grab the aluminum trash can and whip it at them as you're running away.
Oh, yeah.
Kind of thing. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Fucking squealing around a corner and like knocking into the cabbage cart.
Right.
You have all sorts of options. Have fun with these. Yeah. Any combatant may concede the chase at any point, allowing the pursuer to catch up or the query to flee. So, yeah, if you as the storyteller and the NPC decide to give up, you can. If you as the player are just like, yeah, there's literally no way I can catch this guy, or there's no way I can get away, you're allowed to concede at any point. So,
I definitely like the idea of running chases and races and that sort of thing as combats. Like, I like to use initiative, and like these people aren't trying to necessarily harm each other. Maybe one's trying to harm the other, not the other way around. I think like running it as initiative keeps it on its toes, and like you can have like this guy's chasing this guy and the other party is there. Like you could just have the 2 run initiative and then be like, all right, and what's the rest of you doing every rotation to keep it like interesting. But even if they're like assisting watching, like we were talking with the spotting or something. But I think it's a way to keep combat a little more interesting than just throwing punches at each other.
Right.
Oh yeah, because I've run sequences like that with our games, because for some reason you psychos like to run vampire, but very tactically. So I've got multiple things happening at once, and I've used the initiative rules from the core book in that advanced conflict section that I mentioned earlier. They have rules for this.
Yay.
I mentioned it too, I think, in our combat episode, but I love the idea of like the 2 vampires like being like caddy over a game of chess while the rest of the party's like in the mansion sneaking around, or like dealing with the henchman while he's like, no, this guy is my problem.
Yeah, like that, or like the same I love the idea of the same situation of like, the Ventru and their La Sombra enemy right now are playing chess for the rights to this club or something, and then downstairs you got the Gangrel and Bruja just beating the shit out of every employee that La Sombra has.
Yeah. Like, there's an actual bar brawl going on while the 2, like, money men are like, we'll settle this like gentlemen.
Yeah.
Check.
Check, and then as someone gets thrown over the bar.
Oh, yeah, or you can even have, like, I had a game session recently where me as the Ventru and then the Bruja were running distraction during a heist where we were playing the band for a company event. So we had that going simultaneously while the Toreador and the Malkavian were doing the actual heist.
Nice.
So we were like bouncing between the 2. I love that shit. And yeah, you can use a lot of the shadowing and pursuit things. These are some good rules of thumbs. I enjoy this. Moving on, social test. Standard social feat modifiers. There is a fucking table now.
Ooh, actually, question real quick.
Yes.
For you personally, I'm sure this is, dependent on your DM style or ST style. Would you use the pursuit and shadowing, or would you use drive for someone pursuing someone in a car?
I would probably use shadowing and pursuit rules, though, depending on... because there is information about using a vehicle or doing vehicle pursuits. But if you need to for reasons to change up things for your game, just fucking do it.
Yeah,
it's okay.
I think my question would be, are you doing the Grand Theft Auto mission where you have to stay 2 cars lengths back and like slowly follow someone somewhere? Or do they know they're after me and now I'm blazing through the city, weaving through traffic, trying to catch them? Right. Or is it we're doing that while also like firing guns at each other.
Yeah.
Or, I mean, it really depends on what's happening with those cars.
Yeah, because this could also just be like spy versus spy kind of a thing, where both parties are trying to not get the police involved, so you're like pursuing each other, and there's aggressive driving happening, but you're trying to keep it like within the parameters of the law, so you both don't get like whooped.
Right.
Or opposite, it could be a fucking street race, and you're running drive against each other while also weaving through traffic, and like, here comes the cops, or like, I don't know if you want to go full Fast and the Furious with your vampire game, but like, oh no, his buddies are here and they're trying to fuck you over in the middle of the street race.
Right.
Like, you could go really interesting places with it.
Hell yeah.
There was one time I had to roll, I would say probably a pursuit on this one person because I was driving and they cut me off. And I'm not like a road ragey person, but their back windshield said something along the lines of like, want enlightenment? Follow me, you dummy. And so I decided I would.
Okay.
And I followed them for a good like 35 minutes throughout town until somehow they went under this. And I know the area because it was kind of near where I used to live. But you go around this bend and then you can go under a train overpass. And I followed them. They went under the train overpass, turned left. There is only one direction you can go. There aren't any drive-offs. And I sped up around them, and I turned, and they were fucking gone. And I was
Witchcraft.
I was like, shit, man. I bet if I could have followed them around that corner, that's when I would have found whatever it is. They were some fake creature, I'm convinced.
Yeah, you've just been following around.
I almost made it to the hedge.
Or you should have searched that area.
Yeah, that's true.
Pulled over and started looking around.
Yeah.
Just yeeting yourself into bushes.
I'm in!
I've made it! And I was like, nah, you're just in a bramble now. But yes, social test. Standard social feats modifier. We now have a table with guidelines on friendship and hostilities with characters. I understand a lot of people for social things, because this is such a story-based game system, don't really need this kind of shit. I think it's a good guideline to have for just basics like, hey, this is kind of where people are in the social tree and how they're going to react accordingly. I like this as a storyteller to be like, so if this player character is at this level of friendship or hostilities with an NPC, I now have a guideline and a base DC of how this interaction should start and go, and can be calibrated according to how well the interaction goes.
I think this is also useful. Like, I know you've mentioned just having cheat sheets around for drunk STing is great. I could also see this being really useful for, like, I think most people, vampire not, know more people than they could afford contacts or ally dots. This is great for, like, well, I know a guy, but he's not, like, quote unquote, an ally, so he's not just going to do me a solid. These, like, are good for those moments when they're like, well, I'm sure I know a mechanic we could go talk to, and then that helps set a mood for that interaction without having to, like, all of a sudden start spending dots or anything like that, or just being like, well, you don't have points, so you can't talk to a mechanic.
Yeah.
I think this is a good Band-Aid.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And sometimes people will want to roleplay a character that is more social than they are, like, adept at, or less social than they are. Because I've had the problem where I am unfortunately very charismatic, and I try to play characters that are not, but then I kind of oops into being charismatic anyways. So having some stats that might help, like, lock those things in might be a little helpful.
Yeah.
It's a good tool to have. But yeah, so the ranges go from a -1 to the DC for loyal characters to +5 to the difficulty for hostile characters that want to kill you. So super helpful, little guidelines on that. Note on the social test, if during a social test, if you decide to roll dice during the interaction, if there is a crit, a character may become one more step favorable for the rest of that scene. And if there is a total failure, the character becomes one step less favorable for the rest of the scene. Social test, dice roll. I feel like most of the time with interactions, you don't need to, but kind of like in that preparedness branch of, if a conversation hits a point where it would be narratively interesting to have a point where things could fail, maybe chuck that out just for funsies. Just be like, okay, cool. You've given your speech, da-da-da-da. Do your social test to see if, like, what you said actually sticks and lands with this guy or not. And then, you know, if you do super good, they're going to be like, not only do I agree to this, we're bros now.
So, there are rules for like social combat. You wouldn't be using this during social combat?
I think social
stack this on top
I think
of
this
it?
would go into the social combat where it's
Yeah.
like, if you're getting into social combat with a character that fucking hates you and is spending their time and efforts to, like, fuck your life, steal your wife, fuck your sheep, whatever the fuck they're doing.
Whoa.
I know, right? Terribleness. I think, like, these might be some fun, like, modifiers to add to the situation.
Yeah. Okay. So those could get kind of wild then, because like if you're trying to fuck with somebody's willpower social combat wise in front of all of their friends, and you have a thing that they're very embarrassed about, but they fucking hate you and have been working to like, ruin you for the past like 8 years. That's a lot of modifiers you're just throwing around at the time.
Yeah, play this at the speed of plot for your game, but this is some like tools that hopefully help.
Right, yeah.
Keep things in an understanding.
Rules that you can use. I was just thinking like, wow, that could get kind of convoluted, but also fun.
Yeah,
like,
and
he really hates you, so you're going to get a plus 3. Yeah, a plus 3 to the difficulty. But you found out that in his day sleep, even though he's dead, he squeals like a little pig through the entire time.
So that adds to your dice pool.
Right.
And and the guide also recommends modifying the difficulties on these kind of social tests based on the power dynamics between the characters, incentives that are being placed, types of requests that are being given back and forth, etc. There's a lot that goes into it, potentially. But, things to keep in mind when you're setting these things. So hopefully having a little baseline for us to understand where things are coming from can help players and storytellers more fairly adjudicate how the roles are going to go. So, hooray. And that affects other social test bullshit, like intimidation and interrogation. This happens in every fucking game I've ever played.
What?
Every
Vampires?
game.
Intimidating? Interrogating?
Interrogations? Potentially torture?
No.
No. So, intimidation has 2 effects. There's the passive effect, which is generally how much social distance a character is given. There's no test for this. Basically, a good rule of thumb is the higher their intimidate rating is, the more like space people tend to give them, because they're like, "Oh, that guy's spooky.
Don't fuck with this
That gal seems like a bitch. I don't want to fuck with that." And it's like, you know what? Fair, my guy.
Those knuckle tattoos say "eat fist." I don't want to mess with that guy.
That guy seems like a roustabout. And then there's the active intimidation use, which can be subtle coercion, which is manipulate and intimidate versus composure and resolve. These are things like, like, hey, I know a guy and blah, blah, blah. Or, like, hey, if you fuck around too much, I might take your job.
Man, I saw your mom walk into her house the other day. She's a real nice lady.
I'm gonna tweet a picture of your daughter.
Yeah.
Yeah, shit like that. You're just like, oh, God. Yeah. However, the contest will go. Generally, the loser will back down, but not necessarily things beyond that. It's just kind of like okay, I'm spooked. I'm gonna not.
In the
this.
moment,
Sorry.
I'm at least going to.
Yeah, back off on this. And then there's blatant threats. This is generally recommended to be a strength and intimidate versus composure and resolve, or strength and intimidate if you're trying to, bro each other out.
So would that
Someone pulls a gun.
You also pull out a gun.
So say I'm using the same example as I just did. So subtle coercion being like, oh, hey, I saw your mom at her house the other day. That's kind of cool. That's subtle coercion. But blatant threats being like, I know where she lives and I will murder her.
Yeah.
That's a blatant
Blatant threats. Yeah, just be like, yeah, your mom's got a really nice garden. I should talk to her about that.
Yeah.
With a gun.
Right. I actually don't like talking to people very much, but
this knife.
I do like to shout.
I
Hold
do.
up gun.
Yeah. Like, he's a little loud. If we're having a quieter conversation, look at this knife I have, or fangs, claws. You got options.
Right.
Just gestures to the body of the poor person that you've beaten the shit out of. Be like, I don't want to work your mother over, but, yeah. So those are options. Much like the subtle coercion, the loser will back down. And the character with the lower strength takes the margin as superficial health damage. So even if, like, you are less powered and you win the conversation, you're not going to be getting out of that without some, like, scrapes and bumps.
Right, because you're still punching someone if you're doing that. And
Potentially.
So, like,
Yeah.
Yeah, you punch somebody in the face, you can break your hand. Doesn't matter how strong you are.
Yeah, so, it's like, yeah, you win, but you got a bloody nose.
Right.
So, there's things with that. And then interrogation, as the guy delightfully put it, is asking questions with leverage. I hate that so much, but it's true. Anywho, this can be done with teamwork with 2 or more interrogators if you want.
Good cop, bad cop.
Good cop, bad cop. That's a classic. That's a standard. You can go full Guantanamo Bay and have a system and be super fucked up. It's your game.
Bad cop,
bad cop. Bad cop, bad cop, bad cop, bad cop. Worst cop.
You could go the mafia route with a cigar cutter.
Oh yeah.
Or meat cleaver.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Ooh.
Well, if you have a Zamitzi in your party, you don't even have to have those.
You are the cigar cutter.
Yeah.
But yeah, calibrate this according to the comfy levels of your game, obviously.
Yes.
But there's that. You can do a peaceful interrogation, which would be manipulate and insight versus wit and composure. So that'd be your class of detective asking questions. You're having an actual courtroom scene because, hunters might be stuck at court. You could have a courtroom scene at Elysium.
So if you wanted to do a good cop, bad cop, would you maybe do a intimidate with the good cop, bad cop thing, and then shortly after,
well, you might have
good cop or bad cop leaves, good cop is now trying to reason with, and so you could roll this.
Yeah. So good cop generally, I think, would have the peaceful interrogation roles, and then there's violent interrogations, which the guide recommends manipulate and intimidate versus composure and resolve.
Is that the Batman?
Yes.
Okay.
Where is she?
Where is her?
Yeah. That kind of shit. This can be done physically or mentally, resulting in corresponding health or willpower damage.
Okay.
So it's considered violent even if you're just really owning someone to the point where they start taking damage.
Oh yeah, you could do emotional damage.
So you can just neg someone for interrogation.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Oh yeah, you could do a lot of psychological damage. You can do, if you really want to get into the fucked upness, do actual psychological interrogation techniques that have been codified by various governments around the world. And, just you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to lock this guy in a room and I'm going to play a really annoying song really loud, or rabbits screaming like they did to people at Waco and all sorts. There's tons of options that are all delightfully terrible. Woo! Again, this is a do what is comfy at the level of your table, please.
I think one of the wildest ones, have you ever heard of Operation Wandering Soul? I believe it was deployed during Vietnam, but what they did was they took speakers and they made recordings that they thought that the Vietnamese would take as the dead souls of their ancestors coming back, and they would play them out over speakers over their battlefield to scare them away.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, there's shit like that. I know involving stuff with the Iraq and Afghanistan war, there's a lot of blaring new metal at captives for hours. Also Sesame Street and kids shows, just tons of just wackadoo shit.
Yeah.
Yeah, you have lots of options there.
Would you rather be locked in a room with the Sesame Street song playing at ear-splitting decibels for 6 days? Or would you rather be locked in a room with one single tone that's an ear-splitting?
Oh, I'd rather have the tone.
Yeah.
Exponentially would rather have the tone.
You can learn how to tone that out relatively well. Or if it's super loud, that'll just deaden. That'll actually break that frequency in your ears.
Oh yeah, that's why the recordings would get changed up.
Yeah.
I know way too much about torture. It's awful. Yeah. But note from the guide, regardless of the outcome of the contest or conflict round, torture damages the subject. They take 1 point of aggravated damage for each point of their own resolve.
Holy shit.
Yeah, so if you're going to torture somebody, it's bad news bears. I like that the game system is taking this seriously, because dear God, I've been in so many games where they're like, yeah, we're just going to interrogate a guy. And I'm like, you're working a guy over. You're literally torture. This is torture. Why am I the only one that's don't do this? This is fucked up.
I would also say based on your players' humanity scores, they might also start taking some least.
There are notes about that too.
Okay.
Yay! On a total failure. So if you do this roll for the violent interrogation and it goes super sideways, the torture subject enters torpor, goes mad, or just dies.
I mean, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yep.
If you're taking drills to people's kneecaps, they might bleed out.
yeah, this might turn into a Reservoir Dogs, like the camera cuts away.
Mm-hmm.
And then you're just like, me being a bitchy ass teen, like, what's your role? Okay, cool. I'm going to describe the scene cutting away. We're going to go do some other stuff and then come back and be like, the subject is dead. What? They're dead.
They died.
You have a milkshake. Go. Like, what? Why are you like this? I'm like, look, it's fine. Note from the guide, this might not give PCs accurate intel doing this whole project. Especially after torture, a subject often skews the details or invents extra facts based on what they think the interrogator wants to hear. The storytellers, I would say, this is very, very important because through my years of Dungeons and Dragons and Pathfinder, let alone World of Darkness, the amount of times characters get rewarded with accurate and good intel based off of doing torture is fucking insane.
Yeah.
And that needs to not be a thing.
I think the only time I've done that was we were in the dungeon of the cultist trying to end the world. Mm-hmm. I was like, well, we're going to kill this guy anyway. Dangle him first. And you were like,
you guys are awful good guys.
Oh, yeah. Well, it's like even in, what was it? I think it's Blade 3. There's a section of the movie where Blade's like dangling people off of buildings and shit. Like, I think Hellboy does it too. There's a lot of people who do shit that essentially is torture and essentially war crimes and just gets rewarded constantly with, like, accurate and good intel. And I'm like, that's not actually how any of that works. Like, that's just not how it works. Two, don't. Because, like, the stories you and your friends are telling each other does imply how you guys kind of view reality and how the world works. So, like, maybe just kind of keep that in mind a little. And also, if you're playing a vampire chronicle, torture is often a fast track to earning stains. And in any chronicle, it's morally bankrupt behavior, just like in real life.
Yay!
So yeah, if you got a vampire that's like, I'm gonna torture this guy for info, I'm like, you're getting stains, buddy. That's just happening. Like, how many you take is entirely dependent on you, but you're getting them.
I'm pretty sure this is actually stated, but I don't remember. At what point in humanity do you stop getting stains for that kind of thing?
You don't.
Really? You can be at 1 humanity and still take stains for it? Because you'd think that, like, at 1 humanity, you're just like, I just don't give a fuck anymore.
I mean, I, as the storyteller, would give you stains for doing torture regardless of
just
what
as a deterrent for, like, don't fucking torture people, guys.
Yeah. Now, you have a big wiggle room of how many stains you can get before, it really becomes a problem for you. But, there's still the chance that this is the straw that breaks the camel's back, and now I take your character sheet because you're a white.
Right.
You've now become an NPC. Thank you. Good job, my friend.
Fair enough.
You won vampire? I guess?
Well, your beast did.
Your beast won. I won. It's mine now. So on lighter notes, seduction. Hooray! The thing that happens all the time in World of Darkness. The guide recommends situation and style of flirting will determine the dice pool. And it gives a bunch of suggestions. So, like, standard seduction will be, like, charisma and subterfuge. But if you're somebody who's, like, doing a formal flirtation at a gentried high society thing, it might be composure and etiquette. If you're using that riz at the bar to pick up so-and-sos, that might be charisma and insight to see if what you're doing actually works. If you're using the riz at the gym, that might be manipulate and athletics to be like, look how swole I am. Or however, whatever athletic thing you're trying to, I don't sports. If you're doing like a cafe meet cute and you're trying to like finagle a situation to get intel or whatever, that might be like a wits and subterfuge. Yeah, there's a lot of options. Change it as you need.
And then as a player, you could easily like roll an awareness type of thing to get an idea of if you're trying to manipulate this person of what they would respond to.
Yeah, well, like insight, but yeah.
Insight, yeah. Sorry.
No, you're good. The guide does say that the looks merit should help with nearly all of these pools. There might be a situation where you're like, I'm gonna go flirt with this person. You are absolutely just not their bag. That happens.
I tried to do that in the game you were an NPC in, to the whip.
Yeah, how'd that go?
Well, first of all, apparently she doesn't like dudes very much.
Sick.
And second of all, she did not find it all that amusing.
You could be dripping with everything and still just be like, you're just absolutely not their bag, and that's fine. It just happens. Supernatural characters may have extra powers and abilities as well to account for in these situations. I super appreciated what the guide wrote, which is, note that seduction implies some amount of sexuality and desire for intimacy of some kind with others. Some players may be uncomfy with certain expressions of seduction or descriptions of amorous contact. Be sure to establish boundaries and maintain standards of respectful play. Each of the World of Darkness core books has appendices devoted to this kind of respectful play.
Fuck yeah.
Friend flirting is great. I'm super into it. Some people are fucking not, and that's totally fine.
Mm-hmm.
Just talk about it like adults, please. And be respectful. There was that. Yep. Last couple of notes real quick. Combat actions and conflicts. There's 2 sections. Super fucking helpful. I wish I had these better in my brain pan when I was storytelling more often. Reloading and tracking ammo. Reloading takes 2 dice minor action for most weapons. For those who don't understand, minor actions subtract dice from your character's main action. The storyteller might put a cap on how many are possible in one exchange. Readying a weapon, handling equipment, moving more than a few steps, or running an errand, typing in passwords are examples of minor actions depending on the scenario you're in. So, if you're taking a turn and you have a dice pool and you want to do readying actions, they just take away from the dice pool because it means you have less time to do the thing. So therefore you're less likely to be successful in the main thing you want to do. I think that's a really fun and easy rule of thumb to keep on hand for doing things, particularly in combats. Hell yeah. An attack test is often more than 1 shot. When the fuck do you reload? The guide recommends revolvers and small capacity firearms. After 1 attack, you might need to spend a small action to do a reload. Automatic pistols and rifles after 2 attacks. If you have a 30+ mag, after 3 attacks.
So it's presuming, I assume, that you're firing more than 1 shot then.
Potentially,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
I like and dislike that. Because, like, I mean, I guess in a firefight, you would probably just want to pull the trigger as much as you can. The more bullets you put at someone, the more likely you're to hit. But, like, my thought is, like, with a revolver, if it's a 6-shot revolver, I don't know that I would, in a firefight, just be like, pop, 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 pop.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
The general rule of thumb is, according to the guide, in most combat scenarios, every time you're taking a turn in a violent conflict, that you were trying to maximize as much damage as possible.
Right.
If you wish to not, let that be known. Because that is the assumption as the storytellers. You are trying to, as quickly and violently as possible and aggressively as possible, take out your opponent. Now, if you have tactics, or if you're somebody that's like, I'd rather take 3 shots and then, hold.
And then get behind cover or something.
Yeah, well, getting behind cover would be the minor action. So,
Right.
yeah, I would be like, okay, cool. Yeah, you can do that. And depending on the scenario, I might ask you to take a die away for doing the action, or instead of having to do the reload the next round, you just have the 3 rounds. And
Right.
it also just depends on how granular you want to be on your game, because I'm not a guns person. So having these vague rules of engagement are nice for me, because I don't fucking know how many rounds are in every type of mag for every fucking gun.
Right.
But you and some of our other friends that are into, like, paramilitary shit know the fuck out of that. And I'm like, I need y'all to tell me, because I don't fucking know. I trust you to not fuck me over on this.
And maybe this is just when I think about game design and the way we describe and run combats, I'd always seen it as if you're firing to shoot at someone, you pull the trigger once. That if you have an ability that, or, some games have action economies where you can take multiple actions, you can attack twice or something. If you're doing it twice, you're pulling the trigger twice, 1 for each attack roll.
Yeah.
That's the way I'd always ran it. And then, like, if you have the game has rules for automatic weapons and how those work, then you're firing off volleys and stuff like that. But it seems like it's implying that an attack roll is more than a single bullet, which I think is almost just interesting from a design standpoint and what it's saying about the bullet and how much damage they're doing.
Yeah, and there's also just having, this is America, and having been around a fair amount of gun violence, it's very rare when I've heard people shoot pistols that they only shoot 1 round. It'll be like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So depending on how much realism you want in your game, or, like, again, how granular you want to be. Obviously, this is guidelines. You can augment this as you need, but I think this is just a good, like, rule of thumb. So if somebody's walking around with a revolver, maybe after their second attack, ask them to do a fucking reload.
Yeah. I was about to say, and also you might be able to kind of play with that a little bit for how many dots the person has in firearms. Because if someone has 1 dot in firearms, then they've bought a gun, they've gone to the range a few times, but they probably haven't practiced enough to keep themselves cool in that kind of scenario. So they're going to be like pop, 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 pop. Whereas someone who spends 4 hours at the range every 2 days is going to be a lot more practiced and be a lot more cool-headed around a firearm. So they may be able to be like, okay, they may do the same amount of damage because they're actually able to take the time to aim instead of just squeezing off as many shots as possible.
And like depending on character comfort with violent scenarios like this, somebody who has like a military training background, I might knock the reload from being 2 dice penalty to 1 because it's just such an automatic thing for them.
Right.
Or, somebody who's super not practiced in it, like me, I might be like, reloading might be your whole turn depending on the kind of firearm you have, just because you're just like...
Where's the button? Where's the button?
Like, well, like, even if you're not doing where's the button, you might just be, like, shaking and just so, like,
Yeah.
Like, I might ask for a resolve and composure roll, and if you pass, then I'm like, okay, cool, yeah, you can reload and do your action like normal at the -2.
Yeah.
Or,
I mean, there's a reason that's something that, like, I think famously, even in, like, movies and stuff, that's something you have to train for as, like, a soldier or something, is reloading under pressure and quickly and efficiently and not dropping stuff. Like, that takes a lot of skill. Even though I think sometimes the movies and stuff make it look easy, it's like, to do that quickly and efficiently and pull stuff out of pockets and stuff, that...
Right.
I mean, that
whilst under
the
stress of like being actively fired upon.
It just shows like how many quote unquote dots those people have in that skill. Like they've spent time getting good at it, which is why in the movies or when you watch like soldiers do it, it looks fucking easy. They just do it. But I'll tell you what, after having a gun with a magazine that I've been like, I wonder how easy that actually is. It's not.
It's not.
It's not. You got to practice that shit.
Yeah. So, considering how lethal World of Darkness games can be with that kind of shit, this might be a good, like, way to not force people to kill each other immediately.
Yeah.
If you're like...
time for somebody to get away while someone's reloading. Yeah.
Oh, for sure. Or, the enemy is having to reload, like vice versa. Like the enemy's having to reload, so now you have a chance to get in and like do something about it. Not that we have to think about that constantly. Anywho, called shots. A combatant may seek to distract or to direct their attacks at a specific part of their target in order to produce a result other than the maximal physical trauma, and are also used when attempting decapitation or when trying to put a stake in the heart of a vampire. This is when called shots happen. God damn it, called shots come up all the goddamn time, and I'm always like, I don't know what the fuck, what the rule is. Here's some good rules. The attacker declares action and target before the roll. After the roll, attacker subtracts their successes based on the difficulty of their target. So you roll your full pool, whatever the margin would be, you will subtract from that, because this is basically what the disadvantage for doing such a specific target is. So usually it would be a -2 most of the time for most called shots. Hitting a larger target might be a -1. So if you're like aiming for the tire of a car, that might be a -1 instead of a -2. Smaller targets could get you up to -4. And that might be like shooting out fuel lines, like trying to snipe somebody from like 500 yards away. Shit
Using
like that.
your rapier to cut somebody's eye.
Yeah, that kind of shit. So, play with this within bounds of reason. This shot generally is used to incapacitate or hinder, so more often than not, this will not result in more damage as compared to a regular attack. Now, if somebody's specifically aiming for a headshot, slightly different.
Turn it into pink mist.
Yeah, so, but that might be I as a storyteller be like, I mean, if you wanna turn that guy into confetti, I might suggest you hitting a crit. Otherwise, I mean, like, yeah, the guy's down. Mm-hmm. He's dead, but like, it's gurgling and gross and that was not a clean shot. You did it, but like, oof.
Somebody's going to go ahead and finish that up.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And I'm going to make you.
Or not. I mean, you could just leave it.
You could just leave him there. You might get a stain.
For me, if I was running the game, I definitely would, because I like to encourage people describing exactly how they're doing their actions in combat and whatnot. So like, I want to do a called shot to someone's leg. I've got a sword. If I am saying, okay, I'm not trying to stab this thing, I'm just trying to swing it at their legs, that would be the -2 then.
Yeah, basically you roll the dice pool like you're doing a normal sword attack, but you've already preemptively called, I am trying to sweep the legs, Johnny, on this person. And I'm like, okay, cool. Roll the pool. And then because you're using the sword in a way you normally wouldn't, or you're trying to do it in a incapacitating as opposed to lethal.
An advanced tactic or swing.
Yeah, basically. So then once you have that, then that's your margin of success. So hopefully that'll make your swing a little less, I'm taking the leg.
Right.
And more, I've maybe cut the leg a little bit, but knock this fucker over.
Yeah, like you've cut some tendons, they're not going anywhere.
Right. Okay.
So, cool. Hopefully that is helpful for people. That's all. Those were the highlights for me that I was like, thank you. This is shit I'm going to put into my pocket for later use.
Yeah.
Hurrah.
Me too.
And I believe this is a part of the episode where I take the lead.
Uh-oh.
Bum, bum, bum.
So this is what this originally started out as, and the scope of the two things we were writing the script about kind of flip-flopped.
Yep. Sorry, dude.
No, I mean, it happens. It's also just the content of what it ended up being. So there is this, what we've been talking about so far is all in the World of Darkness Expanded Options PDF. That is all, everything previous is that. There's also another free download. I got this off the Renegade site. It might be on the World of Darkness site too, but I know it's on the Renegade website. And it's called Hunter Bonus Content. And from the design, the layout, and some of the things, it feels like these were things that may have originally intended to be in the book and were cut for page count. I know they openly admitted that there was a lot that got cut out. So, but these are 5 different downloads that come in as a group. And I'm going to say right ahead, it says Hunter. Almost all of these could be used for any other World of Darkness setting. They're all pretty good information. So let's jump into that. If you're looking for a little more for Hunter, this would be good, but you could use this for Vampire too. The first one is the one that is Hunter exclusive, and it is just the character creation summary sheet. It's 2 pages, and it's a list of everything that goes into making a character and a summation of what they are and where they are. Holy shit, I wish this was in the original book.
Yeah.
Character creation is the one thing that I think everyone who I ran for struggled with because this sheet wasn't in there. Now, I don't know how soon after the book that this came out, and I'm not going to fault them for that, but if you're running Hunter, make sure you give these pages to your players.
Just print them out, put them in like little protective sheets, and just stick them in your book. Just fucking keep them in there.
These are really great. There's not a whole lot to really break down. We did our Hunter episode already, but I think this is a really important thing to have, even if you have one copy on the table while everyone's putting their character together, so they can go back and make sure they did everything. Essential pages. Download these, they're free. There are also 2 dice sheets. There's one for STs and one for players. And they're essentially letting you know when and how to roll dice. Again, these are great for new players. If you've played World of Darkness or other games or ran them, you probably don't need these, but they are good drunk resources too. So they are 1-page flow sheets. They're super simple. And they're things like, Is there a reasonable chance that your players will fail this roll? No, don't roll dice. It's like that kind of flow chart where it goes through and you weigh the options of what you're doing and it helps you determine difficulty and that sort of thing. Yeah.
Might also be helpful for people that are converting from a D20 system to a storytelling system, and they're just like, I'm used to rolling for da-da-da, and I'm like, you don't have to roll as fucking much. It's okay.
Yeah, and then the other one is helping determine what attributes you should use for different roles, and it's good for players, so you can. I think it's encouraging you to suggest how and what dice rolls you use to achieve things instead of the ST just saying roll this.
Yeah.
So,
or if you
I
want
really
to counter.
like doing that. And it's kind of a problem because I've noticed that I'm bringing it into other systems too.
Oh no!
So I'm playing a game. Like, I mean, it's not really a problem because I think it's good for story regardless. But like, poor Hunter is running a Call of Cthulhu game in our Discord server, and I'm running an occultist who that's like, in the story that I kind of made for him, that's all he gives a fuck about. Like, he's like the flighty, rich occultist that's like, still going to college at 40 years old in the 20s just so he has access to the library. You know, that kind of guy. And I roll occult for everything. And half the time it doesn't give the information that I need or want. But I think it's fun to be like, oh, we just found these crazy worms that are like eating things and they don't seem very natural. And I'm like, I'm rolling occult on it. I'm sure at some point Hunter's like, why? All right, man, go for it.
Look, if you keep rolling, that he's going to start giving you information you didn't want to know.
I want to know it. That's the thing.
But do you?
Yes, it's a one shot. I want this character either goes insane and die, or go insane by the end of it.
So I think this is a good time to talk about that too. I generally just change the information that you're going to get if you use a separate role. So like, say I'm going to use a different example just because like campaign hasn't finished yet.
Right.
But like, say your characters find a weird jar full of like dirt and bone and a bunch of stuff, and you roll a cult int on it. You're going to say, oh, well, this might be this sort of ceremony jar, or this might be this or that. But say someone runs like, well, I want to know, like in Call of Cthulhu, they have like natural world, which is like nature knowledge and stuff. And they roll on that and they're like, well, that's really interesting because based on the soil composition and the trees, this is dirt from this area, which you're not going to get that from an occult roll, but you could get from natural.
Yeah, well, like tying it into World of Darkness. Yeah, so if you get the jar of dirt with accoutrement in it, somebody running a science roll might be able to identify what animal the bones are, or might have specialty in geology and be able to tell you more things about the soil, and you can actually like trace what part of the county this soil was collected from specifically.
Pretty cool.
You could get craft and have people that are like, oh, I know this jar because you can get it at this hobby shop, and you can trace back to the hobby shop and be like, hey, so do you guys keep inventory on these jars? Like,
Yeah, someone who does like forensics and stuff and be, well, I found fingerprints on the jar.
yeah, that's an investigate.
Yeah, there's a lot of ways to skin a dead clue that you found in a game.
Yeah, and
Hold
it
on.
is okay for you as the player to be like, hey, I spent dots and XP on these things for my character. Hey, storyteller, can I do a cool thing? And be like, yes, please do your cool thing. I'm here for you to do cool things. That's the whole reason we're hanging out.
It's the truth.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is the number one rule. It's the number 2 rule.
That's number 1 rule.
There are no rules that don't work for your campaign.
Ah, yes.
Rule 0 is like, don't be a dick.
Yeah.
Rule 0, don't be a dick. Rule 1, if you need to change the rules to make things work, just go for it. Fine. Then
Rule 3, cool!
Yes.
Yes.
Sorry for that spike in volume.
It's okay. I don't think it peaked.
Okay.
Yeah, so these are, I would print all 3 of these out and just have them access if you're a new player or you have new players at your table, just for quick reference. They're great to have. I think they really make the game way more newbie friendly because they just break down the thought system of rolling dice and what's happening down very simply. Another thing we got in this packet is a new adventure outline, I guess you call it, monster write-up. It's called The Lovers. It's a ghost story.
Ooh.
I don't know. I won't go into super spoilers here. I might spoil it a little bit. Hopefully, what I've said so far won't spoil it. I've never had an ST that specifically said, all right, we're running this adventure by name.
Oh, yeah,
Unless it's like, we're running Curse of Strahd or like the big Call of Cthulhu one. What is it?
Innsmouth?
I can't remember. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
But unless you're running like a big box set where it's like, we are running this campaign specifically. So hopefully, but it is interesting because it's a ghost story though. Again, I personally think this could be an interesting story to run with vampires. There are vampires who have abilities and interact with ghosts. And unless they're super powerful, they're not going to control ghosts. So
You could even have a crossover event where you're like, your little hunter cell is like, we need to call in a guy. Fuck. I don't want to call in Terry. He's dick.
and a vampire.
And a vampire.
And a vampire.
So we got to meet him late.
Bullshit. I have to work in the morning.
Right.
But yeah,
I've been up since 3 a.m. for work, all right?
yeah, it's a really cool like 2-page little outline and information. You can flesh it out into an adventure. I think it'd be really cool. I mean, pretty much every World of Darkness splat would have a reason for wanting to deal with it. Werewolves, respect the spirits of the dead and that sort of thing. I assume they're going to carry over. Like, mages might just be like, well, what the fuck's going on? I want to learn about it. Like, it's a good one. It's specific. It says it's for Hunter. You could use it for anything. I would. And the last thing is fucking amazing. And I think you should give it to your players of any games because a lot of players don't use these anyway, and they're cool. It is a sheet for generating touchstones and samples.
Hell yes.
They are listed in lists of 10 of different types, and they're labeled 1 to 10. So if you can't decide, you roll a dice, and you get your touchstones
Nice.
that way. I think definitely would be great for hunters, definitely great for vampires. I assume we're going to get werewolf and mage touchstones. It seems...
I enjoy this. I, as a storyteller, will be like, all right, if I get another motherfucker give me their character sheet with convictions and no touchstones, I'm going to ping you and be like, hey, you got one chance. You make somebody or I'm rolling you somebody.
Yeah.
I'm going to give you a friend.
Whether you want it or not.
You're getting a friend.
Or if you want to be... What I've done is, there's that list of 100 victims in the vampire book. You could use that too. That's another list of 100 people who could also become a one-sentence touchstone.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But I think pretty much all of these, except the character creation sheet, you could use in your vampire game with new players or just in general. They're
Hell
great.
yeah.
It's cool. It's all in the hunter art style, but it's free. Go download it.
I like the hunter art style.
Yeah. Another
It is
thing.
good.
Another thing Sarah noted here, though, is that the upcoming Hunter the Reckoning 5th edition role-playing game Storyteller Screen Kit, what a fucking mouthful. That's come out, has some, I believe it's going to have adventures.
Well, okay, so here's the thing. So there's 2 different books, and this is where I got fucked. And also your research and mine kind of crossed. So the Storyteller Screen Kit, I pre-ordered because I was like, I would like to have the Storyteller screen because I just like having that, because if it's anything like the vampire one, super fucking helpful, has loads of charts. I like that shit. It also lets me hide my dice, and there's cool art on it, and I like orange. So, hooray, I'm excited for this. But there's a PDF book that comes with information on running the games and stuff for your storytellers. Within the Storyteller Screen Kit guidebook, there's a 15-page section that is literally almost all of the exact same info and the stuff that I covered earlier with the Storyteller's Expanded Guide.
Nice.
Okay, cool.
So, crossover there. Yeah, because for some reason I got crisscross applesauced and thought that this Storyteller System Expanded Guide was going to be more combat focused and have some more information about things, and it didn't, but it had a bunch of info I wanted anyway, so like, no harm, no foul. Cool, glad to have it. But whilst I was checking to see if this Storyteller Screen Kit was still for pre-order, I noticed there was another Hunter the Reckoning book that I had literally not heard fuck all about until I happened to see it this morning as of recording. And it is still in pre-order. It is called Hunter the Reckoning 5th edition role-playing game Lines Drawn in Blood Chronicle Book.
Yes.
There's an adventure book for Hunter, and I had no fucking idea.
And from the looks of it, it's going to be 4 adventures that can be run separately or as a campaign, I believe. And that is the one thing I said that this game needed more than anything from my review and playtesting it, is having example adventures and how some of these mechanics are supposed to be rolled and implied. And they're doing that.
Thank God. It's coming out in June this year, supposedly. And I'm like, good.
Again, you guys can go ahead and just put us in the writing credits in the back of the book.
Jesus.
I'm scared if people in World of Darkness branding are listening to us and being like, these fucking chuckle fucks actually have good ideas. And I'm like, God damn it. Cool, I'm glad, but also scared. Hi.
Just hit us up. We'll give them to you direct.
You can do that, or you could just find our Patreon.
Yeah.
Anyway.
You don't have to give us credit if you give us money.
Look, I'm gonna laugh really hard if that's where the corn tub kicks in.
Oh, God. Oh, God. What have I done?
Jason Carl buys you the corn tub.
Jason Carl, if you're listening to this, I'll call you out in a corn tub. Don't worry.
We'll give you a shout out.
It can be an anonymous corn tub if you don't want everyone to know that you got me the corn tub.
I mean, that's fair. That is entirely fair. But yeah, I am excited for that. I'm pre-ordering the book because I own I'm a little bit more of a Hunter the Visual player than a Hunter the Reckoning from the first ed, but I do love Hunter games so fucking much, so I'm kind of excited to be like, cool, I would love to run this shit in the 5th ed system. I have not felt that I had quite enough tools to run something adequately, but with this, hopefully, maybe we can start, and by we, I mean I can start to run Hunter campaigns in the Discord. Maybe.
Yeah, cool.
That would be sick. Hey guys, you want me to run a game and just give you all a lot of paranoia about the government? I can do that.
Yay.
Hey!
I play games to escape my life.
I know, but I like social commentary,
Yeah.
and I spend all this time reading about the Black Panthers. I might as well use it.
All right.
So we did it. That's our little click capsule review on more mechanics for the game, and also there's some cool stuff with Hunter the Reckoning in the pipeline.
Yeah, hopefully that this fixes the issues I had with the game because I did really like what it was going for. And I'm really excited to see what they do with it because, like Sarah said, I think the longest game we've ever had as a group was Hunter the Vigil. I think I ran it on and off for like 6 years.
Yeah.
It was a long
ass time. Also, the weird little nugget of hope for like Mage 5.
Yes.
I'm just like, please give it to me. Please. Because I enjoy Mage, but some of it is very obtuse and not beginner friendly. So like... it's hard to be like, hey, friends, let's play this game unless you're, like, really into World of Darkness and or enjoying substances.
Yeah, and I also feel just really bad for anyone who tries to ST, like, Mage 20, who's not, like, got as a new ST or as, like, someone who's not ST'd or played it before. Like, that M20 book is so fucking intimidatingly big.
It's a tome.
It is, I feel like, if any game could use a little bit of a streamline and then expand... it's Mage. You can give me 40 fucking books of extra content for Mage and I will eat it up. Please just a base level.
Give us a nice core book with like a, hey, here's Paradox. Here's like some basics on different spheres. And here's how to adjudicate that. And then beyond that, just make up whatever the fuck you're going to make up. And I'm like, cool, I can do that. Just give me a frame. Give me a frame. Please give me a frame. Because goddamn it, dealing with mages in the LARP through the V20 or like the 20th edition rules, I'm just sitting here like, fuck, I'm so glad I've not had to ST the system yet. Jesus Christ. So, thank you, Paralyze, for music, I guess.
Yeah. As always. Not a guess. It's a fucking great song.
It's a banger. They exist on Bandcamp. Check them out.
It goes the do-do-do-do.
Do-do-do-do.
Yeah, you heard it at the beginning there.
Yep.
That's why it's called a theme song. We also exist on the Twitter at @blank_bodies, at Instagram at blankbodiespod, same with the Tumblr, and then there's a TikTok at blankbodiespodcast. The Twitter is the big one, but the Twitter world just keeps getting worse. So we're trying to figure out where we're going to go, but like everyone else, it seems like nobody knows.
Nobody knows, and the government might take away TikTok, so we don't fucking know. I was excited for TikTok because there's a lot of really cool World of Darkness related community and content stuff there, including people like playing out their chronicles through stitches on TikTok and shit. It's crazy. It's great. But God, it's cool, but like, God damn it. Apparently, China is going to get into my Wi-Fi, so we can't have nice things. But yeah, if you consider us a nice thing, we do have a Patreon if you want to like chuck us a couple of bucks. We have different tiers that give you access to things on the Discord. The Discord is free, but if you want extra cookie points as well as like voting in polls that help us decide what the fuck we're doing. We're trying to get back into doing our monthly movie nights. There's tiers that I will do character illustrations for you. So hooray. We still have not officially added Corn Tub to the list, but it's on there. It's a joke tier. Don't worry about it. There's also the blood tier. That's also a joke tier, but if you want to give us money, cool.
All I'm saying is my shoulders and neck are fucked up. If I soak in a hot tub, eat some corn, talk about chaos magic, it would probably be good for my stress levels.
It would.
And all that has to happen is somebody has to give us $1,000 a month.
I think it's important to note that it's a month.
I mean, it's still cheaper than therapy in the United States. So, ayo.
Oh, damn. I'll also add with those polls. Those help us determine who we focus on our clan episodes. We have the Nosferatu coming up soon. We are also talking about figuring out episodes we want to do. I've done it before, and I'll probably be running some what are you guys interested in? That's not going to be a win-lose thing, but it's a gauging interest thing. So,
because we want to make sure we write scripts and do research on shit y'all actually want and or need. Also, we might have to change up our clan poll things a little bit, because apparently Elon Musk has decided to take away polls on Twitter unless you pay for blue, and we're not doing that shit.
Yeah, so we're either going to have to use something like SurveyMonkey,
or it might just be a Patreon exclusive.
I like the idea of making it a Patreon exclusive at this point.
Yeah. Let us know in the Discord.
Yeah. And if you're in the Patreon chat, let us know.
Yeah, because you know the muskrat is a menace and is now fucking with my ability to do the show, and I'm pissed.
Yeah.
So I think we should make an alternate account as a large corporation, get the blue check mark for that. We'll pay for that. That's okay. But then we'll just run all of our vampire polls as Target or whatever.
There we go.
I know, but that involves giving Elon money.
That's fair. Yeah.
If somebody could steal a crypto wallet and then use that to fund this joke, I'm down.
Feel free to give us any stolen crypto money you want, as long as it can't be traced back to us.
Hell yeah. We also have an interview series. We've had creators that are official with World of Darkness. We've had people doing their own DIY shit. We have people that do their own podcast, music. And if you want to share any of that cool stuff, we're here to share cool stuff.
Yeah, I love doing these interview episodes. It's pretty chill. We just sit down, chat, talk about whatever it is you're working on. I have a couple in mind that I'm going to be reaching out, but if you have a cool project that you think our listeners would like to hear about it, let me know. I might interview for you for the show.
Hell yeah.
Or if you're a real vampire.
We're also looking for vampires. Yes.
I would absolutely love to have an interview with a vampire.
I've still not watched the new series from AMC yet.
Oh, me neither.
It looks really good. I've not had time.
I don't trust it.
I'm bad at watching TV shows that I have to pay attention to because I struggle to watch TV shows in the evening. So I usually have them on in the background while I'm working on other things, and so it's not 100% attention. So like just reruns of Xavier, Renegade Angel, or like Space Ghost or Sightings are mostly my jam these days if I'm watching a TV show. But
I like Space Ghost.
Space Ghost
and
is good.
Sightings. I'm not a huge fan of Xavier.
that's too bad.
Oh, sorry. Jesus.
Anyway, I think we're out of things to say.
We are. Goodbye.
Oh, I have a lot of stuff I could
Bye.
say.
Goodbye.
But I guess I'll just say goodbye and that I love you.
I gotcha.